Welcome to Tiny Game Chronicles episode 47. My name is Marcus, and here with my good friend Michael. Every other week, we discuss games that are quick plays, but epic journeys. It is great to see you today, Michael. How are you doing, my friend?
I am well, Marcus. We're still in the heat wave. It's still hot, still humid. But I'm ready to fight the good fight.
Yeah,
And looking forward to discussing the game today, Marcus. How are you?
not too bad. It's I got to give a weather report from here. It's actually a little on the cool side, but sunny at least. Probably, I think it's
Okay.
like maybe 21, high of 2021 today. So pretty comfortable. I would say probably maybe 15 degrees less than what you are, something like that.
Okay. No, we're 27, but
Oh,
high,
27.
high
That's not too bad.
27. But there
Is
is
it
a high humidity. So
humidity? Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that we've had 27 all year, Michael.
Oh,
It's
serious.
yeah, it's been cool. It's been a cool summer so far here, which I'm sure nobody, because everywhere else it seems to be hot, so nobody wants to hear about my optimal weather these days. But
Very good.
so Michael, before we get started, I do have a question for you. This game is themed in a world where people have vacations in space. The name of that game is Tacoma. Obviously, you saw the episode title. Would you go on a vacation to space? And I want to say, like, money is no object. We don't
Okay.
have to worry about money because obviously I think that this is anytime in the semi near future, it's going to be real expensive. But let's say money is no question. Would you go on a vacation in space?
I definitely would. I think watching things from a different perspective can be quite wholesome, especially if I have the chance to sit next to Katy Perry. Right, she has been to space
Oh,
already. No, I'm just teasing, but no, I think I would. Just because I think it just gives you a fresh perspective with regards to who we are and perhaps also our role in the universe. And I think it will be quite an enlightening aspect with regards to if you're able to see the Earth from space. What would you notice with regards to, I don't know, the Wall of China? Apparently, you can see that, right? The big Wall of China. Maybe there are some other aspects that you'll notice. Can you see kind of global warming and the effect it has, right, on the Earth's surface? Yeah, I think being on this planet is a gift. So I think if I then come back and have a new appreciation with regards to who we are as a human species, then definitely yes. What about you, Marcus?
I would have done it. I would do it yesterday. Yes,
Okay.
100%. I
Okay.
would love to do something like this in my lifetime. I don't know if it would ever be like feasible given
Hmm.
what the likely cost of doing so would
Yeah.
probably be, but like yeah, 100%. I'd go to the moon, I'd go to Mars. I would do it all. I love this stuff. I think like something um to if I don't know if listeners don't know about me, I like adventure. I like doing
Mm.
things that not a lot of people have the chance to be able to do, like to be able to go on hikes in remote places that not a lot of people have been to and things like that. Like trying to be as off the beaten path. I always, reminisce about being like which in a lot of respects would be very difficult, but like in to be an explorer back in hundreds of years ago, being setting kind of like eyes on entirely new places that people hadn't seen before, like that sounds like heaven to me. Like I despite all of the hardships of doing that, like
uh,
so space is just kind of an extension of that in a sense. Like being able to see the earth from above would be fucking awesome. I would love it so much. Yeah.
so fast forward into 2088. By that time, I'll be exactly 120 years.
There you go.
Would it be possible?
Would it be possible 2088? I mean, hasn't there been some talk like Elon or somebody doing like space tourism stuff,
Exactly.
like legit space tourism? So
Exactly.
that's what,
Exactly.
60 years from now? Certainly doesn't seem outside of the realm of possibility.
I mean,
think
60, 70 years ago, we were apparently on the moon, right? I hear. That's a
apparently,
rumor.
yeah, something like that. Yeah. I mean,
Let's see.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's something that is possible, frankly, within our
Mm,
lifetime. I
mm,
just don't know that
mm.
it will ever be something that is attainable
100%.
for me. I feel like
100%.
that's still going to be
Same.
something for the wealthy. But
Absolutely. Nice one.
okay, Michael, let's before we get into our discussion today about Tacoma, did want to just mention our previous episode for the kinetic visual novel 1997 Reloaded. I thought it was a really good discussion. I know I was a little hesitant about this game maybe
Mm.
before I started. Visual novels are not my thing, but I did find the story of it quite compelling, and I know you really enjoyed playing this game.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of keep that indie flag flying high, and this is done by two wonderful sisters who started off in the comic genre and then continued telling the story through games. Them not being game developers themselves, and I think it's a story that is worthwhile having been experienced. So yeah, thumbs up from my side.
Okay, Michael, let's begin our discussion about Tacoma. So, Tacoma released on PC, Mac, Linux, and Xbox One in
Mm-hmm.
August of 2017. It's an interesting combination. Then it made its way to PS4 the next year in May of 2018. Still not on Nintendo platforms, which I was quite surprised to find out. It was developed and published by Fullbright. Their big previous game was Gone Home, which released in 2013. Tacoma is set in 2088, as you have mentioned, aboard the titular Tacoma space station.
Mm-hmm.
You play the game as a character named Amy, who's a contractor sent by the parent company called Venturis to retrieve the AI data from the station to find out what happened to the crew that was working there.
Yep.
Gameplay is, by and large, a walking simulator. You move through these various sections of the station to find objects or notes that help tell the story. There's also these augmented reality recordings that allow you to piece together and see the activities of the crew. Tacoma received generally positive reception, although it didn't quite reach the highs that Gone Home did with many critics. It's currently sitting at a 77 on OpenCritic. It was nominated for several awards, including Best Indie and Best Storytelling at the 2017 Golden Joystick Awards and Best Narrative at the 2018 Independent Game Festival Awards. So it didn't resonate quite as high as Gone Home with many critics, but still, a well-celebrated game. Okay, Michael, we start out these discussions by asking ourselves three questions. What platform did you play it on? About how long did it take you to beat? And what are some high-level thoughts you have about the game?
So, Marcus, I started playing on the Steam Deck and then realized pretty quickly, both of us wear glasses, that there are some smaller text that you need to read, like emails and things like that, which are obviously not very clear because some of the messages are scrambled. And I really struggled with regards to reading. And so I decided, okay, let me rather switch to PC because this looks like it's going to be a reading intensive game. And so it was. So a nice surprise that on PC, this has a nice little HDR upgrade and some visual fidelity that is not available on Steam Deck. It took me just under 4 hours to kind of go through everything. And I would say this is definitely a tiny game. So, within the 5 hour limits, if I were to give it an alternative title, as I love doing in these games, I would call it Odin's Eye. So,
Okay.
Without spoiling too much. So from the very first moments as you enter the space station, it feels very much like a workplace to me. So not a habitat that is kind of lived in, but rather clocked in, if that makes sense, right? There are a story or something that you can follow through some AR recordings. We're going to go in that, and it actually inspired me to start watching The Expanse in real life. So I never watched the TV series. I'm not sure whether you've seen The Expanse, Marcus, but it's also people on a space station on basically two planets, Earth and Mars. That happens at the Expanse, and something that happens in a place called the Belt. And yeah, so I could have somehow lived that kind of Tacoma sentiment in something that my wife and I now do every night. So we are in season 2 currently. And what I loved about this game is it allows you to move through other people's memories. You're able to, listen to past conversations. And I kind of, that still hums with me with regards to the message that the game has. So, Marcus, what was your first impression when you stepped onto Tacoma, and how did you play it?
Yeah, so I played mine on PlayStation. So I didn't actually check. I don't think there's a PS5 version. It must have been the PS4 version on my PS5. It took me about 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
I did get the
Okay.
platinum for this. The trophy list is fairly straightforward. You need a guide to kind of like do the special things to get all the trophies, but you can go back afterwards and collect everything if you wanted. I didn't have too much more to do, so I just figured I'd get the platinum on that. High level thoughts. Yeah, I think you've said it pretty good. I like this is a walking simulator, through and through, and but one thing I think that, as what you mentioned, and we'll get into, that they do, unlike Gone Home, like it's an evolution of the Gone Home formula where you're basically walking through an environment and just seeing the things that are left behind. And you can kind of like interact with notes and other things in the environment. This, as you mentioned, has this AR playback, these recordings that you get to actually see, almost like these ghost-like images of the crew as they're having conversations. And I think this is actually the highlight of the game for me in a lot of respects, because you get to see these conversations that actually happened. You can follow people around as they're walking to different parts. So they may all be in a room at the same time, and then two of them break off, and then they have like kind of a side conversation that might be related to it, and you can follow them. But then you can scroll back and go back to the rest of the crew, and they were having a different conversation. So that's a really neat sort of mechanic that isn't present in most walking simulators, or certainly wasn't in Gone Home. So they have all that environmental storytelling, but they also have this playback system, which I think is pretty neat. Not without its flaws, though. I think we'll get into that as we kind of do our deeper dive discussion. But maybe I'll just leave it at that. But I think it's kind of a neat. I guess I'll summarize by just saying it's a neat evolution to this walking simulator genre. And this is like 10 years ago now, so I don't know if any games have tried doing stuff like this. I'm sure there have been recordings and stuff, but like being able to do it in the way that Tacoma did, I'm not sure that many other games have done something like that. So that's pretty neat, actually.
100%. I'm definitely one of the major selling points of the game.
Yeah. Okay, so a brief reminder for folks about how we talk about games on Tiny Game Chronicles. We like to identify 3 things that we think stood out about a game, do a deeper dive discussion on each of those 3 things. These are things that stood out to us, and we like to think of our standouts as things that we're going to remember about a game maybe a year or 2 down the road. So things that just left an impression on us. We also, most of the time, avoid spoilers. We'll do so here. Obviously, we're going to talk about the story setup and probably a little bit of the world of Tacoma, but the major narrative story in Tacoma, we'll avoid that. So if you haven't played Tacoma, you are safe to listen. Okay, Michael, let's get on to the standouts of Tacoma. And what we're going to actually do for this one is we're going to combine standout 1 and 2. I don't think we've done this before. Kind of a new, we're breaking new ground here on Tiny Game Chronicles. And we wanted to highlight, we've already mentioned, the ways in which Tacoma tells its story. And there are really 2 major ways. So they're both standouts. This AR, augmented reality recording playback system. So that's one. And number 2 is the environmental storytelling. So I'm just going to quickly run down again what these things are within the game. The AR playback system there are, I don't know, maybe a handful, half a dozen, maybe a few more of these sections where you kind of like enter a room and you have the ability to watch what your crewmates were doing at a certain point in time and the
Mhm.
conversations that they were having. And they're kind of like these ghostly images, and you can see them walking around and talking with one another, and you get story that way. And you can kind of play the recording. You can skip, like, fast forward through to a certain point. You can see them moving around, and you can rewind and you can replay certain aspects of it. I guess the AR system also includes like um, finding people, and then at certain points within this recording, like almost a screen will pop up that you can interact with, that allows you to kind of get a little bit more information that was happening to that character at that time. So maybe scrolling through text messages or email communications and stuff like
Correct.
that, right? Um, so that's one kind of method of storytelling that this game does, the AR playback system. The other standout is kind of like more the traditional,
Mm.
um, walking simulator storytelling method. And that is, through environmental storytelling, through items and notes and stuff that you find in your environment. So you're able to walk around and interact with tons of different stuff. You could, find a candy wrapper and pick it up and look at it. And, or you can find maybe a little bit more direct is like notes that, you know, player or characters have left for one another and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Um, so the game does both of these to be able to convey its narrative, Michael. I think for my personally, like I said, I think the AR playback system is really neat and
Mm.
innovative, and was probably my favorite part of the game. The environmental storytelling, although that's what's very common to the genre, that's a less successful method of storytelling for me. So
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that for now. Where do you want to go with this?
So let me quickly go and I think reiterate the strong point, the fact that we are meeting 6 different characters on Tacoma on the space station. And what I really found neat was that they're all color coded, right?
Yes,
So they have a specific color for you
like their
to
ghostly images are like this.
exactly.
Yeah, the
You definitely
silhouetted different colors.
exactly.
Sorry.
You're
Yeah.
definitely following ghosts or following or chasing silhouettes, so to say, because you get exposed to, I'm not sure, a 2-minute conversation plus minus, Marcus, right? That happens
Yeah.
at a specific point in time before different members either keep talking together or break up to do their different tasks in their various rooms that they have. And I really thought that this was a neat idea because you could follow like the main part of the story when all the characters were joined, and I think you meet them in the first time in a I don't know, kind of kitchen sort of area, where they're all talking before they split up into their various rooms, kind of following the responsibilities that they need to do, their planning, etc. And then you have the choice who you would like to follow. And here, the same story or continuation of a story from another character's perspective, if that makes sense, right? So you actually have the opportunity, and I love this because this is very much a coaching principle that we use, is we try and enlarge the lens around a specific point of truth, right? So a thing that we do, and here I'm divulging a little bit of a coaching methodology. We call the circular questions. So if your client has a specific opinion about something, or a specific story about something, or a specific challenge, what we want to do, especially if it's really hard and the client has a black and white view about a specific challenge, is we would like to invite other stakeholders or other people, what their view might be upon this challenge that your client has. And I think Tacoma does something kind of very similar in spirit with regards to, can you follow, what your boss thinks about the way that you approach this challenge, or the way that you're managing this challenge? How does your best friend see it? How does your partner see it? How do your children see it, etc.? Right? So to enlarge the capacity of options someone has in order to deal with this challenge. And I think this is an aspect that, if you're curious whether that which is being presented to you is the absolute truth, is the black and white, there's nothing else to say about it. But if you want to invite, I don't know, some sort of empathy, a different point of view, some sort of gray into your black and white, it's important always to look at the story from as many other perspectives as possible. And we actually have a name for this. And in this process, we say, let us spend a little bit more time admiring the challenge before we look at solutions, right? So it's really about slowing down. And so this perspective that is introduced within AR, you can rewind the story, right? Scrub it, as we say, to kind of see whether you want to position yourselves within the space station differently, to kind of see what other people were busy doing, thinking, saying, acting like. And I think this is wonderful because it kind of just gives you that a little bit of a truth. I think that we, all too often come to an opinion or a solution too soon without actually spending time with the challenge a little bit longer for us to invite other perspectives, right? So Marcus, this scrubbing back and forth, did it ever change your mind about what was happening, or maybe about a character, if you did it?
Yeah, kind of, a little bit. Like,
Okay.
I don't know that, like, changing my opinion. I think, like, what was really cool is, like, learning more information. So, like, as an example, I think there's a few instances on these playback recordings where
Yeah.
you come into a recording and everybody is in the room at the
Correct.
same time, right?
Correct.
And then they're all having a conversation about something that they're dealing with, having a problem or whatever. And then, like, two characters might break off in one direction,
Correct.
one goes away and then two in another direction. And so, like, you're just kind of, as the player, you're standing there. And so you get to choose one that you want to follow. You could stand still, I suppose, and get nothing more, but you can follow one of the pairs. And then you get their perspective about what the thing that was just being discussed as a group, right?
Yep.
That's really cool. And it's cool when, there are, like, information gaps between the characters. I'm thinking of a particular situation, which I won't spoil, but, like, there is two characters that know a lot more about what is happening in this situation than the rest of the crew.
Correct.
And they're now talking about what was just, like, how they're going to deal with the situation, right? And that's really neat, actually, to be able to do it. And then you can rewind it and then follow to the other characters to see what they talked about after that kind of, like, communal conversation. So that, like I said, that is the absolute strength of this game, as far as I'm concerned, because it's a really neat thing. But Michael, I'm going to get into, I think, part of the reason, some of the stuff that doesn't really work, and
Let's
it could
do
be.
it. I'm ready.
I'm going to acknowledge that this entirely, I'll say right off the top, could be a me issue, or at least largely a me issue. So the game is doing an awful lot in terms of narrative. Like, in addition to these AR recordings and these, this particular scenario that I've just played out, like, there is a lot that it's providing. So, like, you have access to lots of different emails and text conversations and other kind of, like, things through the AR at various time points. But you also have a heck of a lot that's being told through the environment. And I think that you put this really well. We were talking a little bit offline that, and oftentimes in these walking sims, there is an awful lot of extra decoration, right?
Correct.
And I think that I get into a mindset of being unable to maybe distinguish what's decoration, what's essential to understanding this story, and what is kind of just extra stuff. And I think, like, my mind gets in a point of, like, classifying most of this narrative as decoration.
Yeah.
And then by the time, like, I get to a point in the narrative where I'm like, well, I don't really understand what's actually happening here. Maybe I should have been paying more attention to all of this stuff. Maybe it wasn't all decoration.
Mm.
And then almost by that point, it's like too late. And it's like I've missed so much. I'm like just kind of like, well, I'll just get through the end and hopefully it'll all kind of eventually it will come
Makes
together
sense.
for me. And because I couldn't believe I watched a video just to kind of like get a bit of a handle on what was happening in the narrative. I couldn't believe how much I missed in this
Mm.
game. Just and
Mm.
again, I think it's not because I didn't even click on everything. It's like I clicked on it and I scanned through it so quickly that it just nothing absorbed because I didn't recognize that it was even important for my brain to retain or something to understand. And that happens to me in games that um have a lot of storytelling. They use the devices that this game does to tell a lot of its story. And so that's why I think it's at least partly a bit of a me issue, but I also think that there are some limitations to when you choose to tell your story this way that a certain percentage of players are just going to miss so much.
I think we are conditioned, Marcus, to maybe experience stories like what you said with regards to identifying very quickly, with regards to what is key and what is decoration, what is, I don't know, just maybe underlines the world building per se, but
Hmm.
is not essential to the tension of what the story is. And in our pre-discussion, you mentioned Citizen Sleeper as a prime example, right? So how come Citizen Sleeper is different? Well,
Yeah, I
maybe
love Citizen
because
Sleeper. I have no issue
yeah,
following the story, and there's a
yeah,
ton of reading. It's basically, in a lot of respects, it's a visual novel, like literal novel, um,
exactly.
and I have no issue with that. So, what's the difference?
Well, I think that Citizen Sleeper already puts it right from the beginning with regards to what is at stake.
Mm,
And you know that whatever you're reading, this is no decoration, because a life, right, already depends on it, right from when you engage with the game. So already the attention is very different. And I think this is very different from listening to audio logs from, Horizon Zero Dawn, as an example, right? So none of the audio logs, and there are thousands of them, right,
hmm.
add to the resolution of the story, but kind of just paint the world in a I don't know, better picture. The same thing with Baldur's Gate, a game that I'm slogging through, Baldur's Gate 3, which has, again, right, so much inventory, so many books to read. And yes, there's a saving grace that maybe 2% of the things that you pick up, right, have a golden border, and okay, well, this is quest relevant, and the rest is just pure decoration. And to be totally honest, I read through the stuff just very quickly. But as soon as I finished reading the page, I've already forgotten what I read earlier.
Yes,
Yeah. So, and I think it's the
yes.
same. It's the same with you. And it's like, I think we are conditioned with the type of games that we play and we have played, to kind of continue that behavior. And there is no warning. Where do we switch off? Because we just continue in that conditioned way of playing games as we have before. And unfortunately, here with Tacoma, it is a game that you need to pay attention, but also, and maybe this is where the game fails to a certain extent with regards to how it wants to tell its story through the things, the inventory that you find in the world. There is so much, in brackets, shit that you find, that you can pick up. Like, I don't know, I picked up dishwasher, and I said,
Yeah.
okay, well, what I need to do with this dishwasher? I suppose I need to clean something like plates,
Nope.
and so I
Nope.
couldn't do anything.
No, you
I
don't do
couldn't
anything
do
with almost anything. There's a few
exactly.
times where you pick up items that are actually, and that
Uh,
almost makes it worse, Michael, because
yeah.
there's a few times where you do have to pick up a particular item that
Mhm.
is useful. Like you have to
Correct.
use that item in the environment.
Yeah.
Um, but that is almost there's literally I think two examples of that in the entire game. And so but it makes you think, oh, maybe I have to continue to pick. I don't want
Yeah.
to go through this environment and forget, like miss something that I need for a
100%.
next thing. And so you end up going and it's like, oh, this is nothing. And then you're starting to dismiss things like even faster, I think, than you. I don't know. Like I don't really know how they improve this sort of thing.
Mm,
Probably not having as many things that are interactable. I think that there's just too much that you can interact with and pick up and manipulate and look at the back of it. So many times I would pick up like a piece of something that could be turned around. Oh, there
mm,
must be something on the back. Again, games have somewhat conditioned us to like
exactly.
totally look
Uncharted as an
look
example.
around exactly, and make sure
Yeah,
you check the back of it because there might be something that's useful on
yeah,
there. And
a
it's like
telephone
there's
number. Yeah,
literally nothing on the back,
yeah,
and it's
I
like,
know.
oh, okay, why are you giving me the option to even turn this thing around if there's nothing back there? um, so I don't know. You just get overwhelmed with the amount of things that you can interact, or at least I did.
Yeah.
And then as a result, you kind of like your brain starts to kind of like filter out like, well, why am I even doing any of this? And then
Mm,
you dismiss things that would have probably helped add to your experience and certainly tell a bit more of the story and the world building and stuff like that. So um yeah, I like I said, I got through the end to this game and I had such a superficial understanding of the story as a result of all of what we're talking about. Such a superficial understanding of the story that once I watched a video, I was kind of like delving into the narrative. I was like, oh wow, there's a lot here. That's really cool that
mm,
I missed while playing it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think another aspect, and maybe I'm not exactly sure whether this was the intention of the developers. I want to play off with the ideas. If you go into a hospital, right, and need to stay in hospital for an extended amount of time, the rooms that you go into, if you have to share rooms, right, depending on what your medical insurance looks like, right, or if you have a singular room, are always very impersonal, right? It's like, I mean, if you're lucky, right, no one died the day before in the room that you're entering.
Sure.
So it is very sterile. It is very clean. And if I look at the Tacoma space station, um, I'm going to say the working spaces, because there are obviously various rooms, various sections, various disciplines, right? From HR to, I don't know, medical research to whatever. I don't want to spoil the game. You welcome to find out what those different rooms look like. But they're all kind of set up very functional. And
Mm,
even if you look at the banks where private time was spent in the crew, um, the idea that relationships could happen between people was kind of never really imagined. And so to kind of go back to this inventory, when you kind of see amulets, letters, favorite magazines, it kind of humanizes this kind of very impersonal space for you to maybe get an idea of, what does this say about the character that is inhabiting the space. And I mean, they're all single bunks, so to say, and some have been refurbished so that couples could live there, but that kind of was man-made.
yep.
It was not originally envisioned to be that way, if that kind of makes sense. And I think that is again another a message that Tacoma has with regards to who designs these spaces that we are meant to live and work in.
Mhm.
I'll leave it at that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So just something that I noticed.
But see, I think that's a good example of the well done
Yeah.
like environmental storytelling that they've done in this game, because you glean this and thought and reflected a little bit more on the
Mm,
world that
mm,
these characters are living in, right? Um, and actually, that's an example of something that I did as well. Maybe not as deep, because I'm not as deep as you are with this
no
stuff, but
bullshit.
definitely
Come on,
like,
Marcus. Yeah. Yeah.
but I definitely recognized like the personal bunks of these crew members, and there, I don't think this is a bit. There's a couple
Yeah.
on this, and so like one of them has moved out of their bunk to share a room
Exactly.
with their
Cohabit
partner.
together. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and you get to see that. You get to see that, and that's kind of neat. So so like that, I guess, was a successful uh example of them being able to tell story through environment. But I think for me, again, not to harp on it anymore, but like
Mm.
it largely, I this method of storytelling, I just miss a lot. I just miss
100%.
miss a lot. That's
100%.
all. Yeah.
Maybe the last point that I would like to put in here, Marcus, is the feeling that everything is under surveillance.
Mm,
So wherever we find the crew members, even in the kind of most private moments, right, like a shower, right, is logged.
yep.
And I think that this is another aspect, right? What the game is trying to push forward is that, you know, whoever is watching you, because obviously that data is relevant, is perhaps useful, and the company, whoever has installed these systems in place, you know, has a view on you that, you know, your true self, who you are as a person, that's kind of not reflected in data. Yeah, it needs to kind of live in between the cracks of that which is being recorded.
Mm,
So in a way, I think it's also very invasive. Hello, Alexa. The way that, you know, we are being listened to, monitored, recorded, and yeah, I think that we should not take for granted what the prices that we pay with regards to, you know, us giving I don't know, giving up everything with regards to what we do and who we are as people. So this kind of
well, I mean,
surveillance aspect was another aspect with
I think
regards
that
to.
you've led us perfectly into our standout item number 3, which is a
Mm,
theme within this game. I mean, you've already given a really good example of this, and we wanted to talk about how the game presents like the future of labor, and um, it's not necessarily a pretty picture. But I think, like in a lot of respects, Michael, this game was developed and released in 2017, so almost
mm,
10 years ago at this point. It's very prescient in terms of like what the types of things that we're seeing today, like literally, you know, in the gaming industry, we're seeing, you know, the rise of AI and kind of the
correct.
minimization of like human capital and creativity. And you know, that's what a lot of, you know, without getting into specifics of the story of Tacoma, but these are some of the things that this game is really hitting on. And like I said, these are um, pretty prophetic sort of ideas that this game was exploring, again, almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, so the fact that 2017, the way that we thought about AI is perhaps a little bit more different than what we think about it today. I
Sure.
think back then we thought, okay, AI is totally okay if it's really focused on routine jobs, for example, like in factories,
Yeah.
right? Kind of mundane tasks, right? Even like,
We
I don't
think of
know.
them, I used to think of them as robots, and which is
Yeah,
kind of how
exactly.
it's presented in this game, is
Exactly.
like a
Exactly.
thinking a robot, right?
Exactly. Yeah, kind of, okay, why do we need humans?
Yeah.
In dangerous environments, right? Let's put
Sure.
robots in there, or
Yeah.
right, work heavy, labor intensive environments. Let's put robots there. Let's put AI in there to kind of manage these robots and, you know, manage processes and digitize everything and things like that. So, um, the AI out of the perspective of today, I think is totally different. The fact that we never really thought that AI could be a knowledge worker per se, right? We call AI agents. We also never thought about the power of generative AI that generates kind of AI slop or creative
Yes.
AI, right? That is kind of being pushed by also some of the major developer studios per se, under the auspice that it will make our lives as creatives easier. Um, I think one of the more disturbing facts, and I'm not exactly sure whether you picked up this as a general theme in the conversation that the crew members had with each other, is the fact that AI is so prevalent. It also means that permanent work is not something that is part of the rules of the future. So everyone that we meet is a temporary subcontractor,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Which kind of represents this idea of I mean, I've been self-employed for 20, just over 20 years, kind of being a solopreneur. And that also means that you learn to live with this aspect of, will my contract be extended? Which is the conversation that happens all around Tacoma. Once this year is over,
Yep.
will they extend me, or will I then be off somewhere else, or have a means for existence? And this kind of risk of self-employment is there. And interesting as well is that Tacoma pushes this idea of, well, not only are you a subcontractor, however, there are benefits if you behave in a particular manner that is conform to our rules and regulations, right? So it is rewarding loyalty to the system as long as you play to the rules of the systems. And so loyalty becomes its own currency, if that makes sense, right? So, and as a solopreneur, I must say, I also need to play the political game in order for my contracts to be extended,
Mm.
right? So, this constant question of will my contract be renewed? Did you feel this in the background as well while you were playing, Marcus?
Yeah, a little bit for sure. I mean, I think like I think it speaks to. I kind of looked at it not necessarily. I think I can certainly appreciate you taking away like the perspective that you did because of the
Mm,
role that you play in your own
mm,
life. I was
mm.
kind of looking at things from like the bigger the corporate entity kind
Let's
of
do
like
it.
aspect, and like again this constant drive for profits and
Yep.
efficiency,
Yep.
and how um human labor is actually often at odds with the most efficient way. Certainly, in a world where technology is
100%.
able to do like what it's able to do. Um, like just thinking like this is a a fairly significant space station. It had a crew of 6 people. Like
Mm,
that's a pretty bare bones sort of
mm,
operation, right? Like,
totally.
um, and you know there's a desire for from the corporate kind of thing to shrink that down even further, right? And like just having like contractors, you don't have to have a permanent employee. You only bring in people if you need them, when you need them, only as many as you might need for that particular thing. And got to keep keep things lean, got to keep things, and
Exactly.
like you know again we're
Streamlined.
I
Yeah.
think just this morning, as of recording, Xbox has laid off thousands more employees, and it's just like it's happening
Mm,
right now within the
mm,
gaming industry, this industry that we love, but it's
mm.
it's everywhere, right? And like it's kind of demoralizing, but again, I think that this game has done a really you know great job at illustrating this in a sci-fi setting, but like this isn't really sci-fi what
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
touching on,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this is happening
Yeah.
today.
And I think here again is an aspect where I say Tacoma falls short, because yes, what it does well is it pushes forward the idea that we as humans kind of need to keep together, show solidarity, look after each other, and I think that that is great. I think that that is definitely an important piece of the puzzle. But I think what it doesn't show is, what are the long term repercussions
Sure.
where there is constant surveillance, where there is kind of technocratic control as we have it, where we have very powerful people selling to us services that are meant to be convenient for us, but that are underpinned with rules that dictate how we need to behave. Because otherwise you're out of the system, so to say, right? So what is the long-term repercussion of kind of fragile contracts where there is no real security? And I think that Tacoma provides one piece of the puzzle, but it kind of lets us off the hook by not showing us that darker side a little bit more strongly, right? So
yeah, without getting into too much detail, I think that and they did this with Gone Home as well. They tell, at the end of the day, optimistic stories. And I think that, yeah, I don't want to get too much further into that, but I would say that these things don't always have happy endings, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I think that, this game makes it, maybe sugarcoats things a little bit more than, despite the kind of the dark kind of like overtones, it is more optimistic, I think, than
exactly
reality.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sad to say.
So that is my only wish. I think it should have pushed that repercussions envelope a little bit harder, where it comes. Marcus, what is your feeling? We haven't spoken about, obviously, AI. We mentioned it, but does this game in any way made you think a little bit deeper about the role of AI in our lives?
Does this game make me think? Not really. I mean, we've been thinking a lot more about AI in our lives, I think, in the last few years, just in general, and trying to kind of come to a bit of a, I mean, we could say, for me personally, a bit of a balance as to when to engage with it, when to not engage with it, what's okay for me, what feels right, what feels over the line. I think that's something that many are grappling with. The corporations themselves are grappling with this stuff. It's moved so fast in the last little while that I don't know. It feels like nobody really has a handle on any of it. But I would I don't know that this game really added that much to that thought process. But yeah, it's something that scares me a little bit, Michael. I will say, it feels like things have been moving so fast in this regard that I don't know that we fully appreciate where it's going, and I think it could lead to some negative outcomes that take us to a place that nobody really wants to be.
100%. Yeah, I'm really kind of thinking the role of AI in connection with how much we share of our lives, and I think the more we spend our times connected online, the more the aspect of loneliness, especially when we're looking at elderly people, right, that are not so well connected in our kind of productivity system, the way that we live our lives, where AI kind of fills a role with regards to that, whether that still is an aspect where we maybe need to think a little bit deeper about the moral implications with regards to that. So I think we already share so much of our lives with AI, and if we have the technocrats in power that have limitless spending, I'm not exactly sure where that would lead, because I don't know whether they share the same values. And I'm 100% sure that they don't share the same values as we do, because they are motivated by profit, right? And so what are they not willing to sell or do for more control or for more return? So we'll see. So
a wise man once said, Michael, everybody was so busy trying to figure out whether or not they could, they didn't realize and stop to think whether or not they should.
Exactly. Yeah. Nice one. Nice one.
Jeff Goldblum, Jurassic Park. Yeah.
Very good. Oh, very good.
Okay, let's move on to so that's it for our deep dive discussion. We did get a few community standouts for this game, so I just wanted to take a moment to read those ones out. First one from our good friend my co-host for BFAM,
Mhm.
Savoy Prime, he wrote, I think that my main standout was the surprisingly deep character writing. Reading through private emails, chat threads, and files, you really get to know the crew during your investigation. You really get invested.
Absolutely.
And then the other standout that we got was from My Tainted Brain,
Mm.
and they wrote, "Love this game almost as much as I loved Gone Home before it. It has been a long time since I played it, so I can't really remember the standouts, but I seem to remember feeling extremely attached to some of the characters, even though I never got to meet them. I remember feeling concerned for them. Also, that rewind mechanic was truly awesome." So,
Agreed.
a couple of votes for the characters, and that AR playback was good.
Yeah.
So, thank you both, Savoy Prime and My Tainted Brain. And if you, dear listener, would like to have your standouts read on the show for the game that we're playing, Michael will put a call out in our Discord and on social media, and you can respond to that, and we would be happy to read out your standouts for our game on the show. Okay, Michael, we end these things by asking ourselves, do we recommend the game, and if so, to whom?
I would say a big yes up, yes, or thumbs up. A yes up, no, I meant thumbs up for Tacoma. The fact that it definitely has a story to tell, and I think if you, it definitely has a game that has weaknesses as well. But if you love, I don't know, reading spaces, in other words, looking at things that make spaces inhabitable and give it the human touch, then this is one of those games that offers that. Just don't collect everything like we did, or try to collect everything like we did. I think also this is a game that cares a lot about representation. And I'm not sure whether we spoke about this as well, Marcus. The fact that we have clear representation, not just of ethnic groups, but also of sexual orientation. It's definitely here.
Very diverse
And
cast. Yeah, it's great.
very diverse cast, and I think it does though with a lot of dignity and respect, which is great. So I think at no time did I see any form of disrespect. One could say, okay, well maybe that's a little bit too cozy. I think if you also are curious about AI and the role of a technocrat, because there is a baddie here in brackets as well. It'll be good to kind of get into that type of mindset with regards to what does absolute control look like. If those type of stories interest you, then yeah, this definitely is a game for you. Tacoma, from my side, a big thumbs up. What about you, Marcus?
This is a tough one, Michael. So, like, I think that because we do the show, I end up enjoying this game a lot more than I would have if we weren't getting together to talk about it after the fact, and I had
Totally
to kind
get
of
that.
go back and listen to. So, like, if I'm just playing this on my own, if I'm the type of gamer that I am, it's almost like a bit of a hard recommend in a sense, because like when I first played through it, I didn't like hate it or anything, but I was like, yeah, it's fine. And then like now being able to talk through things with you, being able to do a little bit of research on the game to kind of like fully kind of understand the story, I really do like that. Like I like it a lot more now, right?
Yeah.
And so it's it's weird. So if you're not in the kind of like if you don't host a podcast and you're a gamer like me, maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you pass. You know what I mean? Like it's um I think that this is a type of game which you probably knew going in. Like this is for a particular type of gamer, right? If you want a lot of
Yeah.
action, if you're, this is not that. But if you're and you don't happen to host a podcast, but you are still a more of a gamer like me, slow down, try to take the time, read through
Absolutely.
the notes. You don't have to pick up everything in the environment. I don't think that's necessary, but you should maybe take some time to read through, like Savoy Prime mentioned, is reading through those chat threads and those private emails and stuff like that, because that will really kind of like help fill in the gaps, and you'll get a lot more out of this game, even if it might take you a little longer, even if it's kind of like not your inclination. If you want to enjoy this game, you kind of have to slow down and kind of try to absorb as much as you can, because otherwise it will just go past you, and you'll finish it and it may be fine, but it's probably not going to stick with you and you'll miss a heck of a lot. So
Hmm.
that's kind of where I would say with it. Yeah.
One more thing. Did you have a favorite character?
Nat. How about
Okay.
Nat? Yeah.
Same. I was going to
Yeah.
say Nat. Nat was the
Yeah.
one that hit it for me as well. What
Yeah.
spoke to you about her?
She was spunky.
I was going to say she loved
Feisty.
life. Exactly.
Yeah.
Feisty,
Yeah.
loved life. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I think we are
Yeah.
of one mind when it comes to favorite character. Good one, Marcus. Yeah.
Okay, Michael, that's it for episode number 47. A little bit of housekeeping before we wrap things up. Of course, we would really appreciate it if you shared, liked, subscribed, and left us a 5-star review wherever you happen to be listening. Aside from that, you can follow the show on Blue Sky at Tiny Game Chronicles. You can follow me on Blue Sky at Marcus O'Neill 79. You can also find me on the 2 other podcasts that I do, Hype Factor, a fantasy critic podcast. That's a monthly show that I do with my good friend John 32, all things fantasy critic. And then the aforementioned Brothers from Another Mothership, also officially a monthly show. We do it with Savoy Prime, aka Ron, Matt, and Quag. And we talk about various things in the gaming space. Recently released a news episode. We highlighted Summer Games Fest, and we did a bracket on the worst video game features. Which again, Michael, I think I mentioned it last episode. I was not super happy with the ending outcome of that one. So,
Yeah.
Where can people find you, Michael?
So you can also find me on Blue Sky under Drellish, DRELLESH, as well as on our tiny Discord community. Link will be in the show notes. And we are also on YouTube. So welcome to follow us on YouTube. Leave us a like. That definitely helps us to be seen. Follow us there as well, Marcus. And people can also read about us.
On So Many Games. Yes, we're writing articles article every month on So Many Games. It's going to be a game that we've covered on the show. Probably the article will be in a format similar to the way we structure our discussions here, but we're each taking turns. So the most recent one as of recording is the article for Duck Detective. Probably by the time this episode releases, we might have another one up for last week's episode, 1997 Reloaded. So,
Correct.
So yeah, keep an eye out for that. So that is somanygames.co.uk. Okay, Michael, the last thing we need to do is just introduce our next game.
Dun, dun, dun.
So this one released a little more recently, November 2025. It was developed and published solo dev by the name of Charlie Wagner.
Mm-hmm.
In this game, you escape from a mysterious underground megastructure in this short, atmospheric 3D platformer. And the name, Michael, is...
We hope it's Hypergear, right? Or Hypergea, right?
I'm saying Hypogea. It's not Hypogea. It's not Hypogea. Hypogea. That's what I'm going with. Hypogea? Yeah, question mark. Yeah, so this is a little bit more gameplay. I think it's again narrative I wouldn't say narrative light, but like environmental storytelling. I think I don't think that there's a lot of there's maybe no dialogue. I don't think there's any voice acting.
There's no combat.
No combat.
No combat.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Okay, so you're doing a lot of platforming. I think you're escaping this structure. I don't know, or at least climbing to the top of it or something.
You're an automaton, so you're like a robot. That's escaping. So
it has like a pole vault. I haven't started it. Have you started it?
No, I haven't started yet. So but I just saw the trailer for it. Looks good.
Yeah, we've had some friends and some people in the community that when this game came out, it was actually recommended quite highly. I think it's an overwhelmingly positive review scores on user reviews on Steam. So smaller game, but the people that played it have seemed to have really enjoyed it. So I am looking forward to this. I actually got this game, Michael, in our Secret Santa this year. So Dave Jackson, former friend of the show, had got this for me for Secret Santa. So I've been wanting to get to this at some point this year. It's one of my backlog games that we have in his community. So
let's do it.
So perfect timing.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it. I think it's going to be a perfect game after... I think we're going to keep it sci-fi, right? Because it looks sci-fi-ish. So we're going to keep the vein of
definitely looks
the
sci-fi,
genre.
Yeah. Very good.
Looking forward to it, Marcus.
Okay, Michael, I think we can just wrap things up there. I will just end things by saying thank you for listening, and we will be back in 2 weeks with Hypogea.
Hypogea.
See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.